Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, lovely people, depending on where you are watching us from in this beautiful world of ours. I was really, really excited about coming live today with my beautiful guest that is sitting here with me. And it's really beautiful to see you here, Gary, because usually you are on the other side and you are the one hosting, asking the questions, guiding the conversation. And I recently spoke on your podcast. And I was like, I have to have you on mine. I'd really love to share your story. I'm so touched by it. We originally connected on Podmatch, a platform I've mentioned many, many times. And it's really beautiful, the people that you meet. And without further ado, would you do us the honor to introduce yourself to our audience, please? Good morning and good afternoon to you.
Yeah, this is weird. Being on this side, I'm gonna have to figure out how to answer questions, how to ask questions. But
Yeah,
yeah, we met on Podmatch. We have a lot in common. We shared a lot, and we just connected. Adore you to death, and want to support you
thank
every way
you.
that I possibly humanly can.
Mm,
And I guess I'm here because of grief and the passing of my first wife,
mm.
and the adventures from there, I guess.
Yeah, I I really loved what you shared because I mean, obviously you didn't share as much with me because in your podcast the story was about me, but we had a really, really lovely conversation. And knowing where you're at in your life right now, there's a lot of hope and a lot of beauty that we will share. And before we get into that, do you mind sharing a little bit about the background, your life before your first wife passed away? What happened? If you can share your story, and then we will talk about where you're at today and what you're doing with all of that.
Sure, sure. I'll give you the nickel tour.
Sure.
Um, so my wife, we were pretty much first loves. I mean, she was 18, I was
Mm.
21.
Oh,
Love at
wow.
first sight, hit it off immediately. I walked into a travel agency to pick up tickets, and she was my new rep, and I looked at her, and she handed me the tickets, and I'm still standing there staring at her, and she's like, "Can I help you? Do you speak? Are you okay? Do you need medicine or anything?" And I was just completely smitten. That was it. So I went back to my job. I was working as a waiter, and I just told the gal that worked there, I said, "I just met the woman I'm going to marry." And she
Oh.
just laughed like, "You're a complete idiot." But in any case, we did get married.
Mm,
And after 25 years of marriage, she ended up getting cancer.
mm,
Um, and that was a whole kerfuffle of a story. And 2 years of doing what cancer does to you, she passed. And
mm.
then a short time after she passed, I got engaged to a young lady, and
Hold on,
everyone
hold the
was
horses,
beyond
hold the
horrified.
horses. I have to, I have to ask you a few questions here. This went way too fast for me. How old were your boys when your first wife passed? Because you've got two boys, right? That's
We
another
have
thing
two
we have in
boys.
common. Yeah.
Um, Christopher was 21
Hmm.
and Zachary was 20,
Hmm.
either 19 or 20. They're 16
Yeah.
months apart.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
maybe Zachy, because it was December. No, he was probably 20 and
Hmm.
Christopher's 21. Christopher lives with right around the corner from me here in the
Hmm.
desert. Zach was in Texas at the time. I
Hmm.
made a real huge error. It turned out to be an error at the time. I mean, at the time, I thought it was a good thing.
Hmm.
We had very dear friends who are no longer dear friends because of April's passing. That lived in Italy, and I sent my son to Italy. I said, "Dude, just get out of here. It's too much. Mom's
Yeah.
really struggling, and I don't want you to watch this. Just go
Yeah.
for a week and then come back." Well,
Hmm.
unfortunately, she died when he was there, and I had to call and say, "Hey, you got to come home. Your mom passed." And that was, yeah, he held that against me for a long time. Everyone
Yeah.
thought I knew when she was going to go, and so I sent him
Okay.
away, which I didn't. I mean, who knows, right? No
Hmm.
one knows when
Yeah.
someone's going to pass.
Yeah. How how is that situation today? Has that been resolved? Have you had the chance to talk about these things? I assume so.
The interesting thing is, my younger son Zach, he was never here because he was in the service, so he was always
Yeah.
moving around. He wasn't here while his mom was sick, and wasn't here when she passed. And and then had to come in and then leave again. But
Mhm.
my older son Christopher, he's my business partner in our real estate
Mm,
company, and he lives down the
mm,
street. We see each other time. He has
mm,
two. I have two grandbabies now. He has a
mhm,
2.5 year old and a 1 month old.
mhm.
Congratulations to me. So I
I
see
saw
him all
one
the
of them on the video the other day. So cute.
time. That's my jetty, yeah.
Yeah,
And
he came in.
he's going to do a sleepover tomorrow night, so I get him all
Oh,
night
nice.
tomorrow night.
Hmm.
Um, it took a long time. It
Mm,
took a very, very long time, and I almost
yeah.
think it wasn't until I got cancer that he came around, which kind of a weird thing. The cancer kind of did a lot of weird things to a number of relationships.
Hmm.
And that,
You got cancer.
yeah, yeah, I got
So
cancer.
that's new to me. Thank you for sharing that here live. How
Well,
are you
it's
now?
I don't talk about it much. It was a weird thing. I'm
Yeah.
super healthy. I'm the healthiest guy in the world. I'll tell
Hmm.
you another story about being healthy,
Okay.
which is started me. But yeah, it was HPV throat cancer. So HPV is a different type of cancer. It's a sexually transmitted disease that
Hmm.
everyone on the planet has HPV basically, and the
Hmm.
lucky 1% of people it turns into cancer after 40 years. It could
Wow.
be in your body forever. Everyone has it. I mean, it's like
Hmm.
herpes simplex 1. Everyone in the world,
Yeah.
has it. So I got cancer, and it kind of brought him around to like, ooh, wow, maybe I ought to make peace with dad. You know,
Mm.
people can go away, and I don't, and I didn't want to go away.
Good.
So
Wow.
long-winded
Okay.
answer to your question is
That,
yeah, we've
that's
kind of
incredible. I didn't
cleared
see
it.
that coming. So that's what I love about doing these things live because you're like, what? Hold on. All right. So I'm glad that you're sitting here healthy today. I'm glad that that it brought on conversations that were obviously really, really important to have between you and Christopher. And with that being said, I would like to go back to the romantic story because you were like, and then I got engaged. Hold on, hold on, hold on. How did you meet her? What happened? Tell us a little bit about this beautiful now
Well,
wife of yours.
April, my first wife was everything. Um,
Mm,
we were beyond best friends.
mm.
I don't know if you believe in the word soulmate or anything, but
Yes, I do.
we were beyond, best friends.
Yeah.
And we ran our business together. We worked together. We were
Mm,
together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
mhm.
We did everything with the boys from the moment they were born. People say, "Oh, kids tie you down." It's like, no, they don't. You strap them to your back and you get a papoose and you're out of there, right?
Love
Shit, we
it.
took our kids. We had Christopher in
Yeah.
Hawaii, pictures of Christopher and when he was 6 months old on a surfboard in Hawaii. I mean,
Love it.
Zachy was like a year old when we took him to Europe. It's like
Mhm.
so we were a real tight unit. We were a super tight unit. I mean,
I love that.
she was more community involved. She was very involved in the community, and she was more social than me. I'm not
Mhm.
social. So she would, if we got invitations anywhere, I'd say, "Well, you go and I'll watch the kids." And everyone said, "Do you really have a husband? Are you sure? Because we never see." Because I just wanted to be home with the boys. I want to be home with the boys. I want to be home with my family. Um, I hadn't. I just that was my world. We were the
Mhm.
Four Musketeers. And
Mm.
so the boys were very close with their mom. She was PTO president, PTO treasurer. I coached everything I could until I didn't know how to do it anymore, like soccer. I don't know how to do soccer, but when they're little, it's easy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just have
It's
fun.
just
Kick
they
the
just all
ball.
move in
There's a
one
goal.
ball. So, she was always a team mom. My business always sponsored the team and bought the
Mm.
uniforms and stuff, and I always pretended to try to coach. And since our boys were so close in age, it was great. We always said, "Hey, here's the
Yeah.
deal. I'll do all this, but Zach has to be on the same team with Chris, right?" Because
Hmm.
that way I didn't have two separate
Yeah.
practices.
Yeah.
So we were super, super close. So when she passed, it was a massive crash and burn mission. It
Mm.
was it was not good. And because she was sick for 2 years, that was really tough. I lost like 25 pounds. I lost more when my wife was sick than when I had cancer.
Yeah.
And because caregiving, being a caretaker is really a wicked, you know that, right?
Mm.
So
Well, I don't. I know it from a lot of stories, but Rob passed from a brain aneurysm. He collapsed and died. There was no
that's right.
pre-warning. There was just, like
That's
that.
right.
So I don't want to say I know because I don't, but I know it from a lot of stories and dear friends that have gone through it. So I can't even begin to imagine.
It's not a lot of fun.
Mm.
And it depends on who you are. I mean,
Yeah.
um, when I got cancer, I told my current wife, I said, we need to get a divorce. And she's like, why? I'm like, because I have cancer and you are not a caregiver and you're not going to be able to be a caregiver. It's just not your nature. And it's not a bad thing. It's just
Mm.
you're not. And if you leave now before the cancer gets bad and it looks ugly
Yeah.
and everyone knows I'm sick, then if you leave now before that happens, no problem. We're only
Mm.
married a couple of years. People can say, "Hey, didn't work
Yeah.
out. We
Yeah.
separated, right?" But if you leave when I'm in the weeds, right, and I'm really sick and I'm dying of cancer and all this shit, you're gonna feel really bad. So just leave now. Let's just end it now. I can take care of myself. I know how this thing works, right? Anyway, she decided not to, and we're still together. But as far as the other gal, so April died at 8 o'clock on December 8th, 2014. And
Wow.
I met a gal in March because my friends said, you need to get on Match.com. I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
I'll meet people. I just
Yeah.
spent the last 2 years at war, right? I mean, my
I get it.
body's
Yeah.
devastated, and
Mm.
so I met this gal. We hit it off. She was the funniest person I'd ever met in my life, and I love to laugh.
Hmm.
And I still know her. We're still friends.
Yeah.
But so I proposed in like June or something like that, and the poor kid accepted. And her family was horrified, and they
Mm.
were mean to her about it. And my friends
Hmm.
were like, "Yeah, no, we're not accepting this chick." And my boys were like, you're not getting married."
Yeah.
It it didn't go well. It didn't go
Uh-huh.
well.
Wow. Wow. So a lot of people were just, well, pretty much everybody apart from you two were against it. So what happened then?
Very, very. And the thing is, in reality, she probably should not have accepted the proposal. I mean, here's a guy who's after 28 years, his wife
Mm.
dies, and it's only been a few months, and he's obviously not sane. And and you probably should wait, right? You probably shouldn't agree to go ahead and get married right away.
Yeah.
So yeah, so she got a lot of flack, and we were together for 2 years. I paid for
Hmm.
two weddings that I didn't go to either one of them because we canceled twice, and I had to pay for them both times. And she just, it's really too bad because she's a great human, love her to
Mm.
death. Maybe at a different time, a different place, I don't know,
Yeah.
but we had so much in common. It was so
Mm.
nice to laugh after being in death and darkness for two
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Um, so
I
yeah,
understand
that
that
was
so
a
well, but
tragic. Yeah.
let's talk about the time frame for a bit, Gary, because I really like having this conversation with you because you get it, you've been there, you've done that, or haven't done it, like basically you went through this whole ordeal of going through the judgment from other people. I feel there is so much judgment or a very strong idea from people how long you should wait after somebody passes. What's your take on that? I know my take on it. I want to hear yours.
Well, I guess it really depends on how someone passes, how long you were
Mm.
with them. I think there's a lot of circumstances. I think that the
Mm.
most important circumstances is when you're ready. You know, I thought I
Thank
was
you.
ready, but I
Did
was
everybody
not
hear
ready.
that? When you
Yeah,
are ready. That
yeah.
is the perfect time frame. And I love that you admit that. I thought I was ready, but I wasn't. Like I really think it is such a beautiful thing when you, as the person, as the widower, as the widow, or even as somebody who's been divorced, is in a new situation where you want to move forward, to allow yourself to really feel into that. Am I really ready, or am I trying to fill a hole that is there?
A big part of that is intimacy.
Mm,
When you're a caregiver,
absolutely.
like your husband, passed immediately. So there's a
Yes.
lot of shock there. There's a lot of
Mm,
different sort of trauma. But when you're a caregiver and you're taking care of someone,
mm,
there's usually not intimacy
yeah,
when they're real sick with cancer, right? So you
of
lose the
course.
intimacy of being with
Yeah.
someone. Now we had we had the physical intimacy. We slept together, laid together, bathed
Hmm.
together. We showered every day together, even when she was
Mm.
at her sickest.
Yeah.
But obviously, sex is out of the question, when someone's
Mm.
that sick. So,
Yeah.
so when they do pass, and you're human, and I was only 50 at the
Mm.
time, or 51. I think I
Yeah.
was 51. Um,
You're
there's
in the
that
prime of your life.
plays into it. Yeah, you
Mm.
want that physical connection with someone who's not sick. You want that
Yeah.
intimacy. You want that physical touch. You want that
Mm.
laughter, that emotion, the things that come with being in love
Yeah.
and being with someone. You miss
I hear
that.
you. Mm. I hear you. I think, well, I know so. It is definitely a topic that isn't talked enough about. There is something that we all go through. All of us have this experience, when you lose someone, that you not only lose the love of your life, but your life partner, the second parent to your children, whatever, there's the loss of intimacy, the loss of physical touch, the loss of being held by someone. That is really big. And interesting enough, it is often talked about with widows. They call it the widow fire, that really primal need for sex. I have to admit, I have not experienced that. I'm very happy to talk about this openly. I haven't experienced it in that way, as a primal need. It was more like this really deep emotional need of needing somebody to hold you, to be with you, to support you, to love you, and of course the intimacy part. So that to me was a really big thing, and it's so easy. I'm going to say that again. It is so easy for other people from the outside to judge you about that for something they have, lucky to them, never experienced. Yeah, I often say that when people are like, oh, well, I don't understand what you're going through. In my mind, I often think, I'm so glad you don't, because it means that you haven't experienced it. I'm really glad that you don't, because I don't wish that upon anyone. So
No.
what happened after you decided it's not going to happen? You broke it off, you canceled the wedding twice. When did your now wife come into the picture? How did you meet her?
Well, um, after the incident with the first young lady, whose name will
Yeah,
not be mentioned, although, like I said, we're,
no.
we're still friends. I love her to death. I
Mm,
pray for her every day.
mm,
I was, I live in a old folks home, basically.
mhm,
The Palm Springs, California area, Palm Desert, California, has a lot of retired widows.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
so, when you're a widow, am I a widower? What's
yes,
the guy?
you are.
Widower. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So I'm the
widower.
widower.
Er.
So, I'm short. I'm not very good looking and I don't have a lot of money. So I'm not a great
Stop that.
catch, right?
You're fishing for compliments here.
Well, so, but I was surprised at how quickly, you know, pe people would approach you and said, "Hey, do you
Mm,
want to go out? You want to have dinner? You want to have a drink?"
mm,
I'm like,
mhm.
"Look, I, is that how this works? I don't know how this
Yeah,
works. I just left a crash and burn mission of
yeah.
2 years with a gal,
Mhm,
so I dated, but I'm not a dater, right? So
mhm.
like the first person that came along and said, "You want to go have a glass of wine?" Next thing I know, we're in an 8 month relationship. I'm like, I don't know how to date. I haven't dated in
I think you were doing it.
Yeah, I
As you
guess
may
so,
know,
right?
how
I mean,
House of
because
Wine
of
we're seeing each
because
other for 8 months. It's, I don't think there is really a rule book for how to date when you're a widow or a widower, or any person at all, really. It is like, yeah,
is there any
learning it
sort of
all from
guidelines,
scratch.
or do
Like
we
when you've been in a relationship for that long and all of a sudden you're on the market again, which is such a weird thing to say, but that's how they put it.
right?
Yeah, there are a lot of things where there's no rule book for it that you have to figure out along the way, or while you're already doing it and you're not even realizing you're doing it. Oh, I'm dating. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So this person, we ended up dating,
Mm.
and now we're no longer dating, obviously, because I'm married, but she's still a very good friend of mine. Um, and just, so it kind of came about where I ended up in three relationships.
Mhm.
Um, and but they just weren't the one, and
Yeah.
they were kind of like friendship relationships types of thing.
Hmm.
So I had dated three gals, and
Hmm.
then COVID came along, and I didn't want to really date anymore, and I didn't
Mm.
really want to do much of anything. I kind of want to. And so this young lady on Facebook kept messaging me through Facebook, and a really good friend of mine's a psychic, and she reached out and she said, "Hey, you know that scuba chick is really hitting on you. What's going on with you guys?" And I go, "Who are you talking about? I don't even know who you're." She goes, "The scuba gal
Yeah.
who keeps showing you scuba pictures."
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm like, I don't know. So my current wife was sending me scuba stuff because we had, I guess, communicated that we're both into scuba.
Yeah.
So now we're married. But the funny thing was,
So now we're married. We had a glass
after
of wine,
being
so now we're
married,
dating. She sent me a picture, so now we're married.
well, it was COVID.
I
There's
love
not a
the
lot of
I
dating.
love the ease and simplicity of how it all works for you. It's beautiful.
But the funny thing was, so our first date, I said, "Well, do you like shooting?" She likes shooting, and I like shooting. So I
Hmm.
said, "Let's go shooting," right?
Hmm.
And then it hit me. I'm like, well, who would agree to just go out with some stranger that you've never met out into the desert with weapons and shoot
Shooting.
guns, right?
Yeah.
And so I
I
brought my
love how you said
son.
it hit me.
So I brought my son, my daughter-in-law, her father, my neighbor Bob, when I went to
Hmm.
pick her up. And so I pick her up, and I've got all these people. I go, "Hey, I'm here to pick you up. Let's go on our first date." And she's like, "Who are all these people?"
Oh my God.
I go, "I'm not going with some stranger out into the desert with weapons. Are you crazy? I can't even believe you agreed to that shit." So, anyway, so a little while later, like 6 months or a year later, I said, my friend Jules, the psychic, she goes, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." I go, "She said that you were hitting on me during in Facebook and stuff. Is that true?" She goes, "Dude, I was laying it out on hard. I mean, I was hitting on you hard. You never even, I mean, you never once even picked up that I was hitting on."
Oh, I love this. Oh my God. I hear
Anyway,
this all the time between men and women. It's like it can't, like for women, it's like it can't be any more obvious. And for guys, it's like, what? We really do speak two different languages. I love it. Oh, so yeah,
I have something that I want to share real
please.
quick because I don't want to forget because it's super important.
Hmm.
Um, Getting back into the dating thing is crucial, number one.
Mm.
However, something really weird happened to me a month ago. And I'm super fit, right? The cancer was kind of a fluky thing, but I'm in
Mm.
remission, and except for the stupid lisp, I can't talk because they cut part of my tongue out. Um,
I couldn't even
so
hear
I've
it.
always been super healthy, right?
Hmm.
Eat right, don't smoke, don't drink, exercise, fanatic, and I had a heart attack like last month,
Hmm.
and so I I kept passing out, and then finally. And so I get into the doctor and they reel me into the urgent care, I mean,
Mm.
ICU,
Yeah.
and they do all these tests and stuff. They go, "Well, we've got to go up the arm into the heart, the angiogram or whatever the thing is."
Hmm.
And they did, and they're like, "God, your heart, there's nothing, there's no calcium, there's no plaque, but you have a bent artery." I go, "What the hell does
Oh,
that mean?" So
yeah.
they put a stent in it,
Hmm.
and then they put in a pacemaker. So really healthy with a stent and a pacemaker, right? So I'm super pissed. So I went to my first checkup with my cardiologist and I said,
Hmm.
"Doc, what's the deal, man? You said I got
Hmm.
my heart muscles perfectly fine, no blockages, no
Yeah.
plaque." He said, "You almost killed yourself with a broken heart." He says, "You've got a broken heart." He goes, "That
Mm.
artery that it was bent, is your emotion artery." And he said, "You'll live for 40 years if you get your head on
Goosebumps.
straight." Yeah, yeah. And that just blew my mind. I just felt so
Yeah.
sad because he said, "Whatever's bugging you, whether it's stress, emotions." I told him about April. He goes, "It's been 10 years."
Yeah.
And he goes, this is a new thing. This isn't like been there a long time, obviously, because you just started passing out." So he said,
Mm.
"Whatever's come back, and maybe it was a 10-year anniversary." I
Mm.
don't know, but so I guess my message is somehow you have to find a way through it because it'll still come back and bite you in the ass. And for me to have a heart attack
Yeah.
based on
Mm.
breaking my own heart, and it's a real thing. You
Yeah.
Google
It is a
broken
real
heart
thing, the broken
syndrome.
heart syndrome.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm very aware
And
of that.
I can't even believe it. I mean, it's a very powerful thing what's going on to us.
Gary, I'm so grateful that you are sharing this because in my own journey through grief, a lot of people had comments or opinions about how quickly I went into joy and happiness. And to me, it was something that I had promised Rob, like we had promised each other, if something was to ever happen to us, we would take the voice and create the happiest life possible. So that became my North Star, that promise. And it really helped me. Yet, a lot of people have this opinion you have to go through grief, you can't postpone it. And I think everybody has to do it their own way, whatever works for you. It was not that I negated grief, but I did it in a very different way to what most people expected me to do or thought was the right thing to do. I focus on joy, I focus on happiness. The grief still happen along the way. Trust me, it is not nothing that I wanted to or that you can push down like a lot of people thought I did. I didn't. It happened along the way. Yet what I did was I allowed both of it in, the joy and the grief at the same time. And people usually don't allow joy back in instantly. You know, that it's nothing that people think is normal or right, but it was my way. It became our way and it worked for us. And I also believe that because of the way I dealt with it, now that I am in a space where I feel really healthy, where I feel really happy, where I am open to, dating, relationships coming into my life, where I feel I'm in a really good space, in a healthy space in my life, I have waves of grief come back to me now, where I feel I know where they're coming now because now I'm ready to deal with it. And there's nothing wrong with that. For me, it feels super healthy. For me, when something comes up now, when something comes to the surface, that hasn't been healed properly yet, either because, a lot of things come in circles and need to be dealt with again and again before you're ready. It's not even that I'm like pushed you down and now I'm ready. It's like, okay, this again, I know you, I know how to deal with you, and I'm dealing with it. It's not ever that I felt I wasn't dealing with my grief. And that's why I'm so glad that you're saying that, because I feel that when we are ready, new things can come up, because I feel there's a bit of I don't know, maybe it is on purpose that it doesn't all come at once because it would completely drown you. But every story of grief is just as unique as the person experiencing it. So I feel whatever comes up for you, the most important part is that you allow yourself to sit with it, to feel through it, to grieve through it, to cry it out. I still have moments now where something triggers it and I'll sit and cry about it. And that's perfectly fine. It feels like, every now and then it just needs to rain for the flowers to bloom again. Like, seriously, that's how I feel. And I never push it down unless I'm somewhere out in the open where it's probably not highly appropriate to burst into tears. But even then, I've done that as well. It doesn't really matter. But do it your own way. Do it in a way that feels healthy for you. I think that's the most important part I want to bring across. Do it in a way that it's healthy for you. So I'm really, really glad that you have dealt with whatever came up for you, the throat cancer. For me, that is often the throat chakra is all about communication. What did you know? Communicate. And that often comes out in things like diseases, cancer, etc. So when we don't deal with things, they come up and remind us anyway. So I'm really, really grateful that you share that part of your story because it's
Well, because what you did and what I did were completely different. I mean, you
mm,
handled it. You went and got the boys. You brought it to the boys. You addressed it with the
yeah,
boys, and you had that North Star, right? That you and Bob had.
mm,
You honored him by
yeah,
doing it that way. See, I did the opposite. I held it in and tried to
mm,
run from it and avoid it for years, and did the
mm,
massive crash and burn mission, right? So,
yeah,
not that there's any right or wrong way to do it. It's just that holding it in and trying to just go on normal is didn't work out well for me.
Isn't working. Yeah, I get
And
it.
I think
Yeah.
that what you did, which was to keep letting gas out of the bubble a little bit more, keep letting air out of the balloon a little bit
Mm,
more, was a healthier way
thank you.
to walk your way through what you're walking your way through.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. I I know we are sort of past time now, but I really want to talk a little bit about your podcast before you go. Can you tell us a little bit about your podcast? How did that come about? When did you start it? And yeah, maybe somebody wants to speak on it. So who knows?
Yeah, well, the so the podcast, real quick.
Shout out.
I started. A very good friend of mine's wife passed from cancer,
Mm,
and we have been friends for 30 years. And so we were talking on the phone almost every day for like 2 hours
mm,
while she was in late stage, and then after she passed.
mm,
And and so I said, you know what, Jim, this might be really helpful for guys, you know. And so we started a podcast called Grief Pie, two
mm.
guys sharing grief one bite at a time.
Yeah,
And it
love it.
really put him in a bad place. It didn't go
Mm.
well, reliving all
Oh,
this stuff
okay.
because he was
Yeah,
newer and I was. So Grief Pie went away.
yeah.
Um, but I said, you know what? I really enjoy doing this and I want to share
Mm,
with people and I want to help people and I want to talk more about different things and helping people heal. And that's where the What
mm.
If You Could kind of came about.
Yeah,
So,
love it. Love it. And for anybody listening to this, we will be sharing the link to your podcast in the show notes as well. So, Gary, if you could leave our listeners with one message, if they just get away with one thing from this entire story that we shared here, what would you like them to take away from this?
hmm. Well, I mean, it's not necessarily grief related, but it kind of is. But
Mm,
someone said, and I don't remember who the speaker was, I should give him credit, but I can't remember listening to so much stuff, but said something to the effect of, if you absolutely knew you couldn't fail,
mm,
what would you do with your life? If you just knew, no matter what, you had the golden ticket, what would you do with your life? And so, as we work our way through grief or we work our way through whatever, you've got your North Star, right?
yeah.
Find that thing that you're here for in your soul on this planet and go for it. Because life is short and you can't fail. So go
I
for it.
love this message. Absolutely, absolutely love this message. And if you love what you heard today, please go ahead and share it. Please share it with anybody where you feel he or she needs to hear this right now. And subscribe to our channel for weekly updates on Unsilence Grief. Gary, it was such a pleasure having you here. I'm so happy that you experienced being on the other side and sharing your story because I find your story really, really inspiring. So thank you for being here today.
This was awesome. Thank you. This was so much fun being on this set. I really appreciate it, Carol. Thank you.
Awesome. This is Gary Scott and Maria Leslie signing off. Bye for
See
now.
you guys.